Prime Minister Modi's Israel visit is being watched and discussed all across the world. And at home, it is also generating a lot of conversation as well as a lot of debate. At a joint press appearance by Prime Minister Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu just a moment ago, the friendship and the deepening relationship between the two countries was reinforced by both leaders. Back home, the Congress party targeted the Prime Minister for compromising on the Palestinian issue. But in Israel, Prime Minister Modi reminded Israel of India's historic position and the pursuit of a durable, peaceful solution to the situation in West Asia. Do we read Modi's Israel visit as a strategic pivot? That's the big topic for the conversation today. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. These are the images, if we can play them now. These are the images out of Israel today. Relationship on camera, catching the special rapport between Prime Minister Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu. The visit to Israel is something that is being watched keenly across the world. It will be watched not just by those who are allies of Israel, close to Israel, like the United States of America, but also by those who are at odds against it. Remember, this visit is coming at a time when there are war clouds or possible war clouds looming over Iran. It's also coming at a time when, at home, there has been political opposition to Prime Minister Modi's display of solidarity with Israel. But speaking in Israel, Prime Minister Modi has made it clear that India continues to look for a durable and peaceful solution to what's happening in West Asia and has underlined India's support for the Gaza peace initiative. There's a lot to talk about. To remember that this visit is running parallel to a whole lot of other developments. There is the chaos after Trump's tariffs. There is Canada's Mark Carney arriving here in India. A very important statement from Canada. In fact, it almost seems as if Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the controversy that followed is a thing of the past, given those statements. And a surprise visitor in India, Howard Lutnick, whom we know and have basically criticized, the US official who has been at the heart of the tariff standoff. He's apparently here on a private visit, but he did meet with Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and American envoy Sergio Gore. So a lot to talk about. Let me introduce our three very special guests today to try and make sense of the importance of this moment. Military veteran General Atta Hasnain, former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps, is with us. Welcome, sir. Abhijit Iyer Mitra is with us. He's, of course, a strategic affairs analyst, but he has spent a lot of time traveling to and looking at Israel and the Middle East, or West Asia as we in India call it. And Tehseen Poonawala, a Congress supporter who increasingly seems to find himself at odds with the positions that the Congress takes, is with us as well. Let me start by playing out what Prime Minister said on Gaza. This is very important. This was generating all the debate, both home and abroad. So let's take a look.
पश्चिम एशिया में शांति और स्थिरता से भारत के सीधे सुरक्षा ही जुड़े हैं। इसलिए हमने शुरुआत से ही संवाद और शांतिपूर्ण समाधान का समर्थन किया है। यही ग्लोबल साउथ और पूरी मानवता की पुकार है। भारत की सोच स्पष्ट है। ह्यूमैनिटी मस्ट नेवर बिकम a victim of conflict. गाजा पीस प्लान से शांति का एक रास्ता बना है। भारत ने इन प्रयासों का पूर्ण समर्थन किया है। भविष्य में भी हम सभी देशों के साथ संवाद और सहयोग जारी रखेंगे। एक्सेलेंसी, माय डियर फ्रेंड, आपकी आत्मीयता और गर्मजोशी ने मेरी यात्रा को यादगार बना दिया है। मैं एक बार फिर आपसे और इजराइल के लोगों से जो प्यार मिला है, जो स्नेह मिला है, जो सम्मान मिला है, इसके लिए हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तोदा रब्बा।
All right, General Hassan, I'll start with you. There has been a lot of debate over this visit. It's being watched keenly across the world. At home, the politics have erupted. The Congress has targeted the Prime Minister on the Palestinian issue. Priyanka Gandhi has tweeted personally on it. You just heard what the Prime Minister said moments ago on Gaza, on India's historic position, on India's historic support for a two-state solution or a durable, peaceful solution. What do you make of it when India says in Israel that India backs the Gaza peace initiative? How important is it, and which peace initiative? Because there are many people with many ideas of different peace initiatives in Gaza or for Gaza.
Thank you, Barkha. Thank you for inviting me for your program. And this is a very important moment in geopolitics, I would say. It's been now almost 9 years since Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Israel the last time. I remember watching him on television when he landed at the airport at that particular time. Since then, a lot of water has flown, and the world has undergone a major change. The Middle East has been in the focus. Lots of complexities, lots of things have happened here. Of course, the major issue being the Gaza war, the war between Israel and Iran, etc. Our interests have always been retained in a way. The stability of the Middle East, the stability of that region is most important for us from an angle of 9 million Indian diaspora which lives in the Gulf region, the energy on which we depend, the $55 billion worth of remittances which come to us every year. So we have our interests very deeply embedded here. Having said that, obviously, since 1992, the relationship with Israel has also been a very important factor in our overall relationship with the Middle East. We've been one of the nations which have balanced itself extremely well by making sure that our relationship with the Arab world, particularly the Gulf, and Israel has been on an even keel. And we managed to maintain that. I think because of the turbulence of the times at the moment, the kind of things which are happening around us in geopolitics, it was important that India reaches out back to the Middle East, looking at lots of old projects which have to be reinvigorated now. IMEC, for example, IIW. These are all issues which have gone on the back burner for quite some time. We are looking for a further movement on this. But the crucial issue on which everything seems to be focused is India's stance on Gaza. Obviously, we've gone to reinforce our relationship with Israel. We are one of those nations which has, as I said, retained a balance in this entire game. And it's important that in Israel, we make the right noises. We are making the right statements. We can't go to Israel and start condemning Israel for having bombed Gaza. I'm sure no one expects that even. So it makes only sense that when the Prime Minister goes there, he's going to talk some good things to Israel. He's going to condemn the attack on the October the 7th, 2023, which had happened at that particular time. These are the things which are expected to happen. And he has reiterated our support for the two-state solution, which is something which India has always stood by. Yeah. So I think there is no change in the stance that Prime Minister Modi is trying to project there. It's a reinforcement of the Indo-Israel part of the relationship, which was required 9 years down the line. It was required. I think Israel also was looking for a kind of a reinforcing, support, because it is isolated, relatively isolated in the rest of the world. We'll discuss this as we go along, but I think no major change as far as India's stance towards Israel is concerned.
Thank you for those opening remarks, Tehseen. How do you see it? Because I also want you to connect it to the domestic political conversation that is taking place. The Congress, Jairam Ramesh in particular, said that Modi had basically indulged in what he called an unabashed defense of his host. Priyanka Gandhi, who is somebody you support and you say you respect, she put out a comment before the Prime Minister's visit saying that she hoped that the Prime Minister would flag Gaza. The Congress is targeting the Prime Minister. Do you agree that with General Hasnain that there's actually no change? And diplomacy is, of course, walking this balance and that India has walked this balance? Or do you agree with the Congress and the position taken by the Congress?
Barkha, thank you so much for having me on the show at the onset. General Hasnain, thank you so much for your services to the nation. There are two ways of looking at it. Foreign policy must also put your nation first. So we have to do, and our foreign policy must be based on what is most important for India. And I think it is slightly naive to see that the foreign policy with Israel, while it's obviously evolved, has only evolved in the last 10 years. If you remember, and Barkha, you covered both defense and government in the past, Manmohan Singh's government under UPA 1, UPA 2, Israel became the second largest arms supplier to India. Also, there was the India-Israel agricultural initiative to sort of help build Indian agriculture up. So the relationship with Israel has been an upswing. Prime Minister Modi may have taken it to another level or a higher level. But it's also true, as General Hasnain said, Prime Minister Netanyahu is extremely isolated globally, particularly in the global south. There's an ICC warrant against him. There is anger against him. So Israel has done a lot of favors in India. Israel has been a friend of India. India is also doing a friend of Israel by giving it that global recognition that Netanyahu seeks badly. Remember, in Israel, Netanyahu facing protests. He's not the single largest party in Israel. He's taken on the Supreme Court not once but twice. Currently, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was not invited for the banquets, and he's again trying to bring in legislation to change the powers of the Supreme Court and therefore give himself immunity from the corruption cases. So by the recognition that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi give him, Prime Minister Netanyahu also benefits. So one, this is not a one-sided relationship. Two, let's come to Palestine. Palestine has stood by India. In certain forums, they have said, and they've stood on the stand of Kashmir for India. India stands by Palestine. However, Hamas is a terrorist organization. What happened on 7th October cannot be acceptable at all, at all, at all. So all in all, I'm glad Prime Minister Modi spoke about the Gaza peace plan, though I don't know what the Gaza peace plan means. It's a vague subject. What I would like my Prime Minister to do, though I'm in opposition, is I think he has a stature, he has a relationship with Palestine, he has a relationship certainly with Netanyahu, to sort of punch a little above his waist, and India can be an interlocutor in whatever this peace plan is that President Trump is planning. Tony Blair is supposed to head that, whatever it is, to be an interlocutor and try and sort of build that bridge. Because historically, India and Palestine and India and the Gaza cause are together. We stand for two-nation theory and we continue to stand for it.
So
India will be friends.
But before I go to Abhijit, do you agree with the Congress's criticism or you don't?
I think some of it that they should speak about Palestine and Gaza. I think the Prime Minister spoke. I think some of it, I think the political parties must understand. And I'm an Indian Muslim at the moment in Ramzan. Look, mujhe Gaza, I feel for Gaza, but first let me feel about Indian Muslims, right? So Gaza and all is a great statement to make. It's a political statement to make. But the largest statement that has to be made is about Indian Muslims. I don't think Indian Muslims are connected as much to Gaza, in my opinion, as much as we would like to believe. It's a great political issue. It's great to speak. It gets you media bites. But the common Muslim in Mumbai, the common Muslim in Uttar Pradesh, I think he has a daily battle to fight.
I think that's a fair point, and it's not made often enough that it's in the end a foreign policy issue. It's the same issue for Indian Muslims as it might be for Indians of other denominations, is the point that Tehseen is making. Abhijit, let me bring you in now. Is this a strategic pivot or not? General Hasnain believes it's a continuity that's deepened. Tehseen also, I think, comes from that space, but believes that Netanyahu reminds us that Netanyahu is not just a deeply polarizing figure. But I will share with you a little story. I went to Israel right after the Hamas terror attacks. It was a very different moment in what has unfolded since then. And I remember many Israelis telling me that, look, we're going to back our government right now in whatever it does. But as soon as this war is over, we're going to make sure that Netanyahu goes. These are fiercely proud nationalists, Israeli nationalists, who are very angry about what had happened on the 7th of October. Do you believe that it is politically risky to align so closely with a figure as contentious as Netanyahu? That's on the personality. And on the strategic pivot, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm very much in the General Atta Hasnain school of thought on this. It is a further deepening. Shades of deepening, though. For the first time, the Prime Minister actually mentioned Hamas, something that has never happened before. He also said that the war on terror must be fought without any respite, which was quite, how do you reconcile that with there should be peace? So see, it's very carefully calibrated messages, and you have to read between the lines. This is what Yitzhak Rabin used to say. He used to say, I'm going to make war on terror like there is no peace, and I'm going to make peace as if there is no terror. And I think Modi has sort of fine-tuned that in his own language out here. I also thought it was very significant posturing to America. He was using the Knesset to posture to America that if and when Operation Sindhu restarts again, there will be no more interference that's tolerated and no more, expectation of Indian forbearance in any form or way. It is very much the standard trajectory, exactly as General Hasnain said, that is being followed. We need to remember, unfortunately, we tend to focus so much on security. We need to start also focusing on the non-traditional security aspects. All the American majors, technology majors, have their research laboratories in Israel. Intel, AMD, Apple, they all do it out there. Android, there's a huge development center out there. Very crucial we get in there. Israel is either the first or second biggest in terms of new startups in Silicon Valley. Very important we get there. They are the world leaders in arid area agriculture, which is crucial. A lot of the wine success that India has had has been because of the Israeli drip technology filtering in and things like that. Very important to us. Now, traditional security is one more aspect of this. We should not blow it out of proportion. Now, when it comes to Netanyahu and his divisiveness specifically, remember the same people who will spit on Netanyahu are also the ones that will come in the Indian media and spit on Modi for, the exact same reasons: fascism, Nazi, what have you, etc., etc. Let's go to what Tehseen said. The first time that this is not the first time that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has not been invited. He was not invited for Trump's speech. He was not invited for Javier Milei, the Argentine president's speech. And remember, what the opposition did was they boycotted the speaker, Amir Ohana's introduction. They boycotted Netanyahu's speech. They did not boycott Modi's speech. They walked back into the chamber when Modi spoke. And Yair Lapid, who's the head of their opposition, has made it very clear that he made quite the point to go around hugging Modi and joking with him and things like that, so on and so forth, to show that you're not playing things like that. Now, is Netanyahu playing up his personal connection? Yes, that is his unique brand. He does that with Trump as well. If you notice, unfortunately, Trump has screwed him over very badly in terms of the Gaza peace board and things. They've literally bought Turkey and Qatar, the two biggest funders of Hamas, into Gaza, essentially. But these are things you simply can't avoid. You can't have a state-to-state relationship ever without it encroaching some way or another into another country's politics. And finally, Barkha, one thing regarding the divisiveness, we need to remember this comes from very complex constitutional issues in Israel. They appoint judicial advisors to ministers whose advice is binding. Imagine a non-constitutional advisor. His advice cannot be ignored by a constitutionally elected minister by the people of Israel. And who appoints this policy advisor? It is the judicial board, which again has been dominated, irrespective of who is in power. It has been dominated by the left for the last 23 years, as far as I can tell. So, we shouldn't take their internal political disputes and project ourselves onto them. Lastly, when it comes to the Congress, can we say, look, their biggest seats are from Kerala, right? The largest number of single block seats. And they have a certain constituency to appease. I don't think the people of Kerala actually vote on this basis. But for whatever reason, they have felt that they need to, do the flag waving or what have you. I think it's misguided, but congratulations to them. I'm not going to second guess their political motives. I haven't won a seat. I haven't won a single election in my life. I'm not going to begrudge an election winner or political judge.
Okay, I'll get Tehseen to respond to that in a moment. I do tend to agree with him that I think it's a foisted position and, that this is a Muslim issue. I don't think it's a Muslim issue. It may be a left-right issue. I don't think it's a Hindu-Muslim issue. That's how I tend to look at, the Israel-Palestine debate. But General Hasnain, Abhijit mentioned Op Sindoor and the message subtle message or not so subtle message to Washington. It's very interesting. We've had generals today talking about an Op Sindoor 2. We've had generals today talking about an Op Sindoor 2 is being prepared. It's going to be larger than the last time. So one, that, and two, I want to pick up a question from our audience stream, and I want Tehseen also to think about this. Saurabh says, less than the tightrope between Israel and Palestine, India's greater challenge is going to be the tightrope between Israel and Iran. India's Shia population will have concerns in case of a war on Iran. Now, I want your take both on the Op Sindoor point that Abhijit made and what's going to happen if Trump actually does strike Iran. It's still an if. It's still an if because his administration is divided. It's not clear that he can achieve regime change without cost to America. It's not clear he has the appetite for it, but go ahead, General Hassan.
Barkha, thank you. And these questions only deserve black and white answers. They really are not in the gray zone at all. As far as Operation Sindoor is concerned, there are no two ways about it. Operation Sindoor 2, 3, 4, whatever has to take place will be with the full might, full capability, calibration as necessary, and the requirements of the situation as per our national interest and a strategy which has been played out by the armed forces, backed by the political community completely. That's exactly what is going to happen, and nothing more than that. We are not into the game of, we have seen how we have resisted American pressure and the kind of things which have been spoken about, imposing a ceasefire on India, etc. I think we have pushed back sufficiently on that to explain to the world we will play by our interest. India does that always, it plays by its national interest. Having said that, to come to this other question on Iran, I think you are overplaying this whole issue of the Islamic angle, the Muslim angle completely, right? For one, remember that you also have the Arab world there. Much of the Arab world is a Muslim world too. That itself on Gaza has had a completely gray approach, right? When it comes to their interests, they will play for it. When it doesn't suit their interests, they will play against it. This is how the world of geopolitics always performs. And this is exactly the policy that India is following at the moment. And as far as a crisis between Israel and Iran is concerned, India is midway. We don't have to side with anyone, right? What have we done in the case of Ukraine? I mean, we haven't sided with Russia. We haven't sided with Ukraine. We have played it, well, I won't say neutral that way, but we have played it as per our interest, right?
Yeah.
Made sure that we have never spoken out of turn. We haven't condemned anyone here and there. Mr. Modi went to the extent of saying this is not the season for war, if you remember in the famous statement to Mr. Putin at that particular time. I'm sure privately, this particular visit would have been used to a great extent by Mr. Modi to understand, gauge better this whole business, the gamut of the Gaza plan, peace plan, which is completely in the gray zone at the moment. No one knows what the hell is this plan all about. There is a board. There is a board. I mean, it's like saying, okay, let's put together an industry, but having a board first, and let's put the industry after that, right? It's almost like that. But here, I'm sure the nuances of what really is expected from India. What would Israel really want from us? And to what extent can we go to support it, etc. It will give us much greater clarity at this time. But to say that on the sentiments of the Shia community of India, India is going to play geopolitics in a situation of a standoff between Israel and Iran is, I think, a preposterous understanding of geopolitics.
Okay, that's very bluntly and plainly said with no ambiguity at all. Tehseen, do you agree? You said that Palestine is a distant issue. General Hasnain believes it's preposterous to even suggest that there is a religious dimension to how India might respond on Iran. Do you agree with that? And B, I do want you to respond to the domestic politics that runs concurrent. You heard what Abhijit said. You have many differences with leaders like Jairam Ramesh in the Congress, but Priyanka Gandhi is somebody you do support. You are close to her. This is her comment. It's on the screen. Abhijit connects it to a sort of, political play in Kerala. How do you respond to both the points you've heard?
Thank you, Barkha. So first, let me address the general's concerns. I slightly disagree with the general. If there is a war in the Iranian region, in that area of the globe, it affects India directly. How will India access Afghanistan if Iran is under attack? We can't access Afghanistan through Pakistan in any case. Iran is a friend of India. Israel is a friend of India. India's duty is to ensure, or hope is to ensure, that Iran does not sort of undergo an attack right now. I agree with you what you said, Barkha. I don't think any regime change in Iran can happen without putting boots on the ground. No regime change in the world can happen or has happened without boots on the ground. And I don't think America has the appetite to put boots on the ground. So I don't think there'll be a regime change. But if Iran continues to stay under attack, India loses out. That's first. Second, you must also understand if Iran is significantly weakened, which are the two nations that get very powerful? One is Israel, a friend of India's. But the other nation that gets very powerful is Turkey. Is that in our axis? There's an axis of Turkey, Pakistan, and those other nations. And Turkey certainly does not act in India's interest. So India needs to maintain stability there. India needs a stable West Asia, therefore access to a central and a stable Central Asia for India. So I think these are two things that India would hope for. Whatever happens, India would be hoping that if there is an attack by the US, the Iranian regime sort of outlives it, and then it continues to sort of negotiate on the so-called nuclear deal. Right now, Turkey is talking about a nuclear weapon, and then sort of Saudi Arabia gets into the mix. In fact, nations that were opposed to Shia Iran are today ganging up and saying, "Look, we don't want this attack. Do not use our airspace, or at least negotiating with their airspace do not be used." Now, let me come to the domestic politics of it. While I do think a Muslim will not really vote on Israel and Palestine, I do think it resonates. Let's also not say that it does not resonate. So yes, there is a resonation of a left, sort of a left a worldview of what Israel used to be and how Israel is the evil empire attacking the Palestine. There's also a sentimental value, and with Kerala elections, politicians will have to sort of make that noise. Also, remember, under the left government, a Hamas terrorist was repressing a rally. So you sort of understand what that sort of politics out there is. That was the left that was doing it. So the Congress will need to sort of keep its equilibrium with the Kerala elections, Tamil Nadu elections, and West Bengal elections. So I think those statements are domestic statements. Domestic politics happens everywhere. There is domestic politics in Israel, which is as complicated, if not more than India. As Abhijit rightly said, the opposition walked out when Netanyahu came in, but came back in to meet Prime Minister Modi. And again, nobody called the opposition anti-Israel or anti-national. They accepted it. So that's just the way politics is. Everywhere where there's politics, that will happen. I think India should do what's in our best interest. I don't think any hardware deals will be signed. I think what Netanyahu will try and convince Prime Minister Modi is in the hexagon that he wants. That is to fight the evil axis against Israel. That will involve USA, India, etc. I think India will be balanced out there as well.
I'm glad you've brought up this hexagonal alliance, so to speak, and I want to bring it to Abhijit. I said yesterday on my program that we've never been part of a military alliance, and Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee said, no, not never in 1971. We in fact were with the Russians. We very clearly picked a side, so I'm not going to make that mistake again. But generally, our foreign policy is rooted in this belief that we do not join formal alliances, right? So when Netanyahu makes this noise, when it's dubbed as a sort of counter to what's being called loosely as the Islamic NATO, the sort of convergence of, a few countries, the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia pact, how do you see India balancing Netanyahu's hopes for this hexagonal alliance?
So I love Ambassador Bhashpati very dearly, but we need to remember that was a mere mutual cooperation pact we signed in 71. There was no an attack on one will be an attack on all. No, D'Artagnan and the three musketeers, one for all and all for one, usme nahi tha. It was very clearly we will consult when we are attacked. That was it. Number one. Number two, we don't believe in alliances. We never have and we never will, because it doesn't matter how severe the pressure from China is. We don't get into situations that Ukraine got into. Remember, Ukraine is where it is today because it refused to give the same commitments that India did, which is we will never be part of an alliance. They wanted to join NATO. And Russia will behave the same way that we expect China to behave if we, make those alliance dynamics and things like that. Third, just to add to what General Saab said, the Muslim angle is complete rubbish out here. I don't think it operates on the ground at all, because Indian Muslims are fundamentally Indian citizens. They will shed a few tears here and there. Listen, forget Muslims. Even you and me, Barkha, we're Hindus. We don't like what's happening in Gaza. Right? We don't like seeing women and children getting killed. We don't like seeing men getting killed either. It's not nice. War is not nice. Can I tell you the Dawoodi Bohras? We have many different Shias in India. The Dawoodi Bohras and the Ismailis are only interested in humko paisa dhando karna hai, that is it. And they make delicious food and dhando. Yeah. And
Tehseen is pointing to himself.
yeah, he is. He's all about dhando and delicious food.
Can we unmute Tehseen for half a second? Tehseen, are you trying to say something?
I'm Ismaili. I'm Ismaili. Who is Ismaili too?
And if you look at the Jafi, we need to remember, even though there is this denominational respect for Ayatollah Khomeini's teachings, the actual ground support isn't there. You go to, say, Kargil, which you've been to, you've reported from extensively. I saw images of, Qasim Soleimani, images of the Hassan Nasrallah and things like that. Who are they? They're great martyrs. They died. What more do you know about it? We don't know. And we don't care. They just want to use it to stay away from what was happening in Kashmir at the time. It was more a sort of externalization mechanism than it was any, innate loyalty or whatever. I think General Saab will back me up on this mostly, for most part. So, it has never been religious. Now, when it comes to the Hexagon and these alliances, we need to remember this is a part of the world that does micro-balancing that would send our mind into a spin. During Jamal Abdel Nasser's rule over Egypt, he was this complete revisionist who was interfering everywhere. Yemen, all of it. The Saudis were helping him and sabotaging him at the same time. The Emiratis were helping him and sabotaging it. Jamal Abdel Nasser was trying to get rid of King Hussein in Jordan. Officially, King Hussein had to, kowtow to him in the name of Arab unity. But in private, he was making attempts to have Jamal Abdel Nasser assassinated. The Syrians and the Egyptians once merged into something called the United Arab Republic, which lasted for all of 7 years because the Syrians saw it as Egyptian colonization. And Egypt was largely a lower class society. Syria was a rich, affluent, upper middle class society. They didn't like it and they kicked out the Egyptians. This is a place, if you remember, even in our own lifetime, when the Syrian civil war started, initially the Saudis, Emiratis, and Turks were all on the same page. Then they turned bitter enemies, which they remain to this day. The Saudis and Emiratis were lockstep in Yemen till 3-4 years back. The Emiratis pulled out, and now they're at each other's throats. They were against Qatar. You remember the full air embargo and everything of Qatar that happened. And now, the Amir of Bahrain is hugging MBS and things like, Qatar is hugging MBS and things like that. We don't change our policies over 30, 40 years. They change their allies every 2-3 years. It is a very easy zone to operate in if you're willing to be very fleet-footed. So I won't exaggerate that threat. Just last thing, if I may point out, the moment that the Saudis decide to bandwagon with Turkey and Pakistan, you can pinpoint that to when Israel and America comprehensively destroyed Iranian military power and projection of Iran. As long as Iran was strong enough, it was a threat enough to everybody in the Gulf to keep the glue of Gulf unity together. The moment Iran becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, the internal squabbles with the Gulf countries will erupt, be more visible. And so, our interest is in maintaining Iran is just the right level of threat to keep all our friends in the same basket.
What a trapeze walk it's going to be in the next few months. General Hasnain, let me give you the closing word. As you said, nobody knows quite what this Gaza Peace Initiative is. India has sent an observer to the board. I don't think India is going to join this board. I could be wrong. This is not from knowledge. This is just from analysis. What would you be looking out for as fault lines in the next few weeks and months?
See, Barkha, first of all, I think Abhijit has explained it extremely well. The issue we have to look at is everything is in the crucible at the moment. there is no definitive thing which is emerging in the Middle East politics. This whole business of the Hexagon, the Islamic NATO, nothing has crystallized. These are all formulations which are being spoken about. This is a world of narratives at the moment, and the more you speak about this in public here and there, the more ideating you do, you start looking at the possible combinations and the outcomes of that. So I don't give it any credence at the moment. We are still in that stage. As you said just now, we are not even certain that we are going to be a part of the Gaza peace plan. We've got an observer there at the moment. Let us get the nuances correct. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi would have queried the Prime Minister of Israel sufficiently on this, and the staff accompanying him would have got all the necessary inputs on it. So our decisions will be taken in our national interest at the end of it. And I'd like to reiterate and repeat that Islamic politics, internal Islamic politics of India, is the last thing that we are looking at in terms of our national interest in the Middle East. Our national interest is what is going to be played out in the Middle East. Whether we support Iran or whether we support Israel or we support Saudi Arabia or whatever it is, whatever it be, in the complexity of things at the moment, it is ultimately our national interest. And we may just be actually going only midway in the middle, neutral to it all. How we have meandered through the Russia-Ukraine war,
Right.
how we have meandered through the US-Russia-China standoff and remained with our autonomy intact. I think that is the interest that India will always be seeking. And therefore, instead of overreading all these things which are happening at the moment, I think we should just wait. Things will play themselves out.
I think that is the bottom line on which we can all agree. I think we all agree that internal politics are not going to be what defines India's, delicate balancing at the moment. It is a delicate balancing. There will be only national interest guiding it. That national interest will have to keep readapting itself to changing circumstances. The circumstances are changing very quickly, and we're going to have to be very, very nimble about our responses. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. General Hasnain, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, and Tehseen Poonawala, a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you. See you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust